Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. In this flow series we will see how to freeze users account using Salesforce flow. So why do we need to freeze users account in Salesforce? So here are some reasons. In Salesforce, sometimes we cannot deactivate users directly, such as when they are part of custom hierarchy. Then sometimes user will be on vacation, so that for security purpose we need to freeze them so that they cannot log in the Salesforce org. After that any user or employee leave the company, then they still own some records and those records we need to reassign to other users. For that, if you deactivate that user, then there will be the chances to data lose. Then same for the shared reports and dashboards. We need to reassign that reports and dashboard to the other user, and we need to remove data access for that particular user, so that before deactivating that particular user, we need to freeze them so that we can make changes of these following things. And between this time we are making the changes of that particular user, we need to freeze them so that we can prevent them log into the Salesforce org. So let's take a scenario to better understand. We need to automate the process whenever the admin or delegated admin enters the date when they want to freeze to particular user, the system will auto freeze that user on that particular date. Now here what we need to do, we will create a date field on user object so that when the admin enters the particular date, on that date the flow will trigger and user will be get freeze. Then we will create flow, then add necessary elements, and then we will activate that flow. So on the particular date user get freeze automatically. So without any delay, let's jump to the org. First we need to create date field on the user object. For that, click on object manager. Then in the quick find box, search for the user. Here you can see we have user object, click on it. Then in the fields and relationship, in that we need to create new date field. For that, click on new button. Then in the data type, select date and then click on next button. So here we need to enter label. So this label will display on the user object. Here I am entering freeze on. As you click on field name, it will automatically populate, and then click on next button. Now here we need to establish field layer security, where we can decide to which profile we want to display this field. Here I have selected system administrator, then click on next button. Then here we need to add to page layout. Here you can see we have three different page layout: user layout, user profile layout, and then community member layout. Here I want to add this field to all layout, so that I checked all. Then click on save button. Now as you scroll down, here you can see freeze on field with the data type as date has successfully created. Now I will show you where we can see this field. For that, click on home. Then in the quick find box, search for user. Then here you can see we have users option, click on users. And then if you open any user profile, here I am opening this user profile, and then as you scroll down, here you can see we have freeze on field, and as you click on edit button, again scroll down, and in the additional information we have freeze on field, and as you click on this date, you can enter the different date. So this will be the triggering condition for the flow. Now I am cancelling this. Then we will create flow. For that, in quick find box, search for the flow, click on it, and then we will create new flow. For that, we have new flow button, click on it. Then after the updation, we have two options: start from scratch and then use a template. Here I am creating flow from scratch, then click on next button. Now it's very important which flow we need to select. So as per our scenario, we need to check every day, is there any date? So on that day, user should freeze. For that, here we have schedule trigger flow, click on it and then click on create button. Now here we need to enter start date. Here I am entering today, and then time. Here I am entering 10:45 AM, and then here we have frequency once, daily and weekly. If you select once, this flow will trigger at once time and then it will get deactivated. Then we have daily. That means this flow will check every day, is there any triggering condition, and if there is triggering condition, this flow will execute. And then we have weekly frequency. If you select the weekly frequency, then after every 7 days from the start date, it will check is there any triggering condition, so that flow will execute. And if there is a triggering condition, the flow will start to execute, and as per the defined logic, the flow will automate that process. Here I am selecting daily, and this is the optional field to choose the object. Here I am selecting user object, which is standard object. As you scroll down, here you can see user, click on it, and then we need to enter some condition so that when the condition get matched, the flow will start to execute. So here I am entering first condition, is active equals to true. That means the flow should execute when there is any active user. Then I am adding second condition. Here I am adding the custom field which we created. Freeze on is null, then false. That means if this field is empty, then flow will not execute. Now if these two conditions are true, then only those records will be applicable for triggering flow. Now we need to check freeze date so that we can take an action on the user. For that we need to add decision element to check the freeze on date. To add the decision element, click on this add element icon, and then here you can search for decision element, or here you can see decision element, click on it. Now here I am entering check freeze on date. As you click on API name, it will automatically populate. Now here you can see we have outcomes. Here we need to add two outcomes. So if we found the freeze date, then we can freeze that particular user, and if you don't found freeze date, then we can stop this flow. For that, here you can see I have selected new outcome. Then here we need to enter label. Here I am entering S, so that if we found the freeze date, then the further action will be performed. As you click on API name, it will automatically populate. Now in the resource, we need to select freeze on date that we created on user object. To select that date, click on it. As you scroll down, here you can see triggering user, and this triggering user is nothing but the object which we selected in the start condition. Here I am selecting triggering user, and under this triggering user, you will see all standard and custom field. Here we need to select freeze on custom field which we created, and then equals to, and then in the value field we need to select current date or today's date. For that, as I click on it, here you can see running flow interview. This is the global object where we can get the current date. As you click on running flow interview, here we have current date, click on it. And now this condition says if the freeze on date is equal to today's date, then the S outcome will perform. That means whatever logic we will create, that action will be performed. Now here we have default outcome. As you click on it, here you can enter the label. Here I am entering no. Now if the freeze on date is equal to the current date, then we need to freeze the user. For that, in the S condition, we need to update the user record. For that, click on add element, and then here search for the update records. Click on it. Now here I am entering update freeze user record. Then in the how to find records to update and set their values, we need to select specify condition to identify records and set fields individually. So this allows us to specify object and field individually. Now here we can check the user who going to log in, and if there is any freeze on date is equal to current date, we need to freeze them. For that, in the object we need to search for user login. Here you can see we have user login object, click on it, and then filter user login records. Now here we need to specify condition. Here I am adding user ID is equals to, and then in the value record of user ID. That means as you scroll down, here you can see we have global record variable. As you click on it, here we will get all the user fields, and here we need to select ID, and here we will get user ID. Then we need to set field is frozen equal to true. Now this means if there is an user which freeze date is equal to current date, then the update record element will execute. We set the is frozen value equal to true. That means for this user we make his account freeze. Now I am closing this. Now if any user get freeze, we need to set up the freeze on date is equal to null. For that, below the update freeze user record, we need to add another element which is also update record. Add the update record element, and here I am setting label as freeze on date null. And then in the set values for the user record, simply search for freeze on date, which is user object custom field that we created, and then here we need to enter nothing. That means this null value will assign to the freeze on date field after the user get freeze. Now we need to save this flow. For that, click on save button. Here I am entering automate freeze process, automate freeze user process. The API name will automatically populate. Then click on save button. Now we will debug this flow before activating. Now here I am selecting any user. Here I am selecting Alexander Joy, and then click on run button. Now here you can see the flow is not triggered. Why this is happened? Because if you go to the start element, here we define two conditions. As you click on it, is active equal to true, and then freeze on date should not equal to null. Now we will check any other user. For that, go to the setup. Now here I am editing Smith Alex user profile. Here you can see now this user is active, and now in the freeze on date I am entering current date, so the flow will get triggered. So here you can see, so the current date is 26 September, and then save this record. Now again, as I debug this flow, I am clicking on debug again. If there are any changes, click on save and debug. And here you need to enter the username which you made the changes. Here I am entering Smith Alex. We have Alex Smith. Click on it and then click on run button. The flow completed successfully, and now we will see debug details. In that, in the decision element, it got the freeze date equal to current date, and then in the update record is frozen equal to true. That means we freeze this user, and after the user get freeze, we update this record for freeze on date is equal to null. And here you can see the freeze on custom date field is equal to null. Now the flow has been debugged successfully. Then I am activating this flow. For that, here you can see activate button. Click on it. Your flow was activated, and here you will see the deactivate button. Now we'll update the freeze on date on user. For that, navigate to the user profile. Click on setup. In the quick find box, search for user. Here we have users. Click on it. Now here I want to freeze this Smith Henry user. For that, I am opening this record. And then here you can see here we have freeze button, and this user is active also. Now I want freeze this user automatically. For that, as you scroll down, here you can see here we have field date. Here we need to provide date on which we want to freeze this user. For that, I am editing this record. Then as you scroll down, in additional information, here we have field. I am clicking on this current date and then click on save button. Here you can see the user has been freezed successfully. In this way, we can automate a process to freeze the user using Salesforce flow. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon to get regular updates. Thank you.